Action.
All right. Action. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming on today. My name is St. James, and welcome to the Mr. Social podcast brought to you by Mind Reader Media. And I have an honest feeling that today, this podcast might just be your favorite one ever. Here's why. My guest today embodies the 4 F's: family, fitness, finance, and most importantly, fun. A lot of people have to juggle something or sacrifice something, and we all have to make investments within our lives. But my guest today is able to do that, and he's able to provide a great example so that we can also follow in those footsteps too. So to my right, your left, Jason Stewart. How you doing today?
What's up, my man? I appreciate that intro. You reminded me of my friend Regan Hillier, who says a quote after each of her posts, and it's, "You absolutely can have it all."
Nice.
And when you said you don't have to sacrifice to have one thing, balance is an illusion. So you're never going to be at 100% at everything,
Right.
but you can have it all. You can build up your empire of, say, real estate, and you can build up your health. And then while you're building this other thing, you may not be building real estate at that time, but it could, it could
keep
stay where it
developing.
is. You may not be hitting the peak of all of your fitness goals, but you can at least maintain it. And that's where I think a lot of people get it wrong, is they try to go 100% at everything at once, or they just hit the other extreme of just like, oh, it's too hard, it's too much, and they don't try to really excel at anything.
Amen. And I want to give a special shout out to Icon Studios out here just outside of downtown San Diego for putting this together here, because, man, we've got some serious stories to tell. And
That's
I
a nice
think
place.
you really touched on something here about that balance, because you are involved in real estate. You are involved with a lot of things. So if I were to walk up to you on the street and say, "Hey, man, you've got really cool hair. What type of conditioner do you use? And also, by the way, that's a cool car, or that's a cool dog, or that's a cool family." What would you say that you do as a profession?
As a profession, the short answer is, I tell them I've been in real estate for 20 years, but the what most people are looking for is I'm the founder and CEO of Epic Fighting.
Okay.
And that's kind of like more the claim to fame.
Right.
Even though I've been in real estate longer, and that's been what has supported me and created like that foundation that has allowed me to build on everything else.
Right.
But the Epic Fighting, since the very first show, going on 13 years ago,
What?
Epic Fighting has been what's it. Epic Fighting has been what opened a lot of doors for me, got me on the podcast, the news, the TV channels, the radio shows, the ESPN, all that type of stuff. It was always about Epic Fighting. And so everybody knows a dozen or 100 realtors.
Yes.
Owning a fight promotion was something that was unique and cool, and more people wanted to hear about it,
Right. And I mean, here in San Diego, you have great exposure, because, I mean, not only are you a huge market here, but it goes all the way up the West Coast. And you have actually a big fight coming up, I believe, in March.
May 12th.
May 12th.
is our
I'm
next
sorry.
one, yeah.
That's what I meant to say. May 12th. Because I remember I saw the timer, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's a few months to go. So
Yep.
my goal is going to be there for the fight. I'm not going to be able to fight. I'm not going to be in fighting shape.
Oh, that's too bad.
But if you
We were counting on that.
well, the thing is I make a pretty good ring guy. Like the guy, I can hold up the sign really well. I'm not going to wear the 2-piece, but I'll at least wear like some shorts, and I'll just hold up the sign.
Okay.
Or I can ring the bell.
Ring
pretty
girls,
well.
watch out. He's coming for your job.
Exactly. So you have been in real estate, and you started off, I believe, as a realtor. Is that how the whole game started?
Yeah, I bought my first house at 21 in 2001. I bought my second house at 24, and that was right around the time that I was first getting into real estate. It was like 2004. So I'm about 20 years into it. And realtor. I guess technically you could say I was an investor first, because I bought my first property at 21. So 2001 was like my start to my investing. I
Okay.
tried to buy a house when I was 18.
Really?
And I almost succeeded, and there was something on my credit. I'd never checked my credit in my life. I didn't know anything about credit. I just went in there with the mother of my children now, and we didn't have kids then, but we were dating since high school.
Right.
And I was like, pull over right here. I'm going to go in there. And it was like a Century 21, and it was in like the Boston. I think we were headed to like Boston Market to get some food. And I'm just going to walk in there. I was always like,
Right.
you know what? If you don't take a chance, worst they could say is no.
Right.
I was an 18-year-old. I walked inside, and I was like, can I buy a house? And they were like, where's your mom? Like, who are you? You know?
Right on. Nobody.
And I was like, I don't, they're like, well, what's your credit? I was like, I don't know. You tell me.
Right.
And so nobody wanted to deal with this 18-year-old kid. And this guy who was newer, he was younger, he was more hungry. He's like, I'll check it out. So he ran my credit. He did everything. He's like, do you have it? They're assuming I had no money.
Right.
I actually had money saved up. I was always really good at working hard and saving up money. I always worked in jobs that had tips because I was always like,
right.
I don't want to work minimum wage. I'd rather work 3 times as hard to make twice the money.
There we go.
Because time to me was really valuable.
Right.
So I had, 10 or 15,000 saved up already. And he was like, man, you actually would qualify to buy a small condo right now if this wasn't on your credit. And I looked, and it was a West Virginia water company.
What?
In 88. I was 8 years old. And I was like, what? And I went back to my mom, and I was like, why is the water bill on my name when I'm 8 years old? She's like, I didn't hear you complaining when you was drinking the water and taking baths.
Yo.
And we grew up really poor, and she had already,
right.
used her own social security number, so she had to use mine to get the water connected.
Right.
And that was still on my credit. And so that kept me from purchasing until it fell off, and then I bought when I was 21.
That's right. And that kept you 3 years more to be able to save up some more money.
Well, no, the move would have been to buy then, because the property values went up tens of thousands of dollars during that time. And so that same condo that I could have bought for 70, 80,000 was now 100,000, 120,000.
Oh, there we go, right?
And so there were condos back then that were pretty decent, 2 bedrooms for 70, 80 grand. And I think I bought mine, which was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, South San Diego, 92154. And that bad boy was like 126,000.
Whoa.
And it just goes to show you seek, as my mentor and good friend Greg says, seek advice or seek counsel, not advice. Mm-hmm. And when I bought that condo for 126,000, which I was told was a decent deal,
right?
All the neighbors come out. Oh, mijo, no, it's a Hispanic neighborhood.
Right.
You spent how much? No, they ripped you off. Like, I spent 60,000 for mine. I spent 20,000 for mine. But it was years ago. The market had went up.
Right.
And so everyone was saying it was a horrible idea. Fast forward just a few years later, it was worth 3 something. So it was like from 126 to 300 and something. So if I would have listened to the people who they don't know, they just know what they bought theirs for
exactly
5 years ago, 10 years ago. And so right now, if you went to buy a property, if you went to do something that was outside of their comfort zone, the people who love you, and they mean well.
Right. Sure they do.
Care about. Mom cared. My mom was like, you're crazy. Go rent first. You don't buy, you don't go straight to buy. Go rent first.
No.
And I said, no. And so, it was a good move. And even if it's not a win in the long run, the experience that you get from it is going to be a win.
Experience is a great teacher.
Yeah.
It sure is. And I've had some pretty painful lessons, but thankfully I've graduated from it. I'm sure you've had your things as well. And to the people who are listening in their car and the people who are with us right now, those of you watching on YouTube and everywhere else, don't think we're just going to be talking about business, because we're going full circle here. And if you're trying to teach your kids a little something about finance, somebody such as Jason is going to be a great teacher for you, because he has a lot of experience. And I want to say something, actually. Thank you. Because you didn't have to invite me to your building with your family, with your friends, with your loved ones, and take this dude who came across the country and say, hey, let's do a vision party together.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you came.
I was like, I don't know anybody here, but I'm going to have some fun.
Well, the cool thing is a lot of people came that I didn't even know.
Okay.
And so friends bring friends, and you meet new friends. And as you could see, the energy and the group that I surround myself is typically good people. First of all, when you're having positive themed events, you're probably going to get a pretty positive crowd. We're all there to put our goals on paper. If you have goals, you're already in the top half of people.
Right on.
If you're actually going to take action on your goals, that puts you in the top 40, 30%, maybe even 20. And so we already got, pretty good energy, because we're coming there to find images and phrases and quotes that coincide with how we want to better our lives. So it's a really fun event to do. And some really cool people showed up for us. I'm glad you came.
It was awesome. And one of the things that was on my vision board was an orange Corvette. And what do I see on the way here? An orange Corvette. And I'm like, if that ain't a doggone sign, then I don't know what is. And getting to family also, I met your son, JJ.
Yeah.
He's a powerhouse.
He's a handful.
And JJ was saying things that, and how old is he again now?
He's 10.
He's 10, but he's like, I want to be like my dad. I want to do this. I'm going to have this. And he speaks with conviction.
Oh, yeah. He knows 100%.
And I think that's what's interesting, that us as fathers, us as brothers, us as family members, one of the most important things that we want to teach our children and our families is confidence. And JJ and all the kids are exuding that in handfuls. I think today you even put up a video on your socials about, what he said.
His tip of the days were fire ever since he could speak, and he learned to talk really young.
Exactly. He had his tip of the day, and he's like, yeah, this is good advice. And you know what? I'm going to let you guys watch it, because I was like, I can't believe this kid.
Don't ever let anyone judge you by your face.
Exactly.
Don't ever judge somebody by other people's face. I was like, that's good advice. He's like, what's a good advice?
Exactly.
Like, he was too young to know that, but he knew the great tips of the day. Yeah, that was really interesting. So I'll tell you a funny story about the power of manifesting. So I always explain to my kids at a young age, because the school will train you everything but this, and everything that you learn in school will start to kind of contradict this fact that every hyper successful, high achiever knows, and that's that you can manifest things, right? The law of attraction is real. The reticular activating system is it's a science, right?
Okay.
The reason why you saw an orange Corvette is because your brain tuned in to an orange Corvette because you just put it on your vision board yesterday.
That's right.
Now you're going to see all these orange Corvettes where I might not recognize him, he might not recognize him, because it was not on his vision board, right?
That's right.
But what did I see today? A McLaren, because I just bought a McLaren.
Right.
I'm seeing them left and right now. Now, McLaren is a car that you probably double take at anyway, but I'm sure a few of them slid past me, when I wasn't like fresh off of buying one. Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you a funny manifesting story. I always told JJ, if you think about it, if you believe it, if you can picture yourself having it, then it can happen. Anything you want, you can make happen.
Right.
He's 3 years old, and this was way before I lived in Coronado. We lived in Chula Vista, and we're walking down Coronado, where I now is my backyard, but that used to be the dream place where we would always visit and just like imagine, like, man, there's people that actually live here.
Yes.
With this view of San Diego Bay, and now that's where we live.
Yes.
And so we were walking. He was like, I want to go on a boat. I was like, oh, I know, that's cute. And I was like, I'll wait for him to get distracted and forget.
Right.
He wouldn't let up. There's a boat that I'm holding his hand. Let's go on that boat then. I'm like, we can't go on that. How do you know we can't go on that boat? You didn't ask him. Go ask him if we can go on the boat.
And how old is he?
He's 3 years old. I'm like, all right, let's, maybe there'll be a boat over there. Let's distract him, talk about something else. He wouldn't let it up. So we are all the way at like Tidelands Parkside, and then close to the Coronado Bridge, and we walk all the way past the ferry landing, all the way to the very end where the walk stops.
Okay.
And he wouldn't let up. And then he said, there's a boat right there. It was these people in this really fancy rowboat. And he's like, go tell them we want to go on their boat. And I'm like, it's not that easy. He's like, yes, it is that easy. You have to ask. Like, worst they'll say is no, but you have to ask. Like, man, what did I do? I created a monster, right?
Exactly.
This guy is smiling, and he says, what's he wanting? And I said, he keeps thinking that we can just go on some stranger's boat.
Right.
He said, well, that happens to be my boat. These people just asked me if they could use it. If you want to take it out with them when they're done, feel free.
That's incredible.
I said, are you serious? He said, absolutely. I would love to make his day. So next thing you know, we're on this rowboat for like an hour. He said, here's my number. Call me when you get out, and I'll help you get the boat out. And we put it on my trunk and all that. I stayed in touch with that guy. I ended up moving to Coronado several years later, and we're supposed to be moving into a house in a few months that is, we got the connection through a friend of his. So we're still in touch with him. He plays piano at my party and all this stuff. So we stayed in touch with this guy ever since, and he still has that boat that he'll let us use whenever we want.
That is amazing. All right. That is a 5-star right there. I mean, come on, man. And he was 3 years old. And
he was 3 years old, and he was so confident that he could manifest it, and he did. And it blew my mind.
I was listening to the Dalai Lama speak once, and I will never forget this phrase that he said. It was, look through the world look at the world through the eyes of a child. Look at it for its innocence. Look at it for the opportunities that could happen, because life starts to beat us down. It starts to basically wake us up from our dreams. And really, the dreams are things that we can have, but we have to work towards them. We have to manifest them. And I really appreciate the fact that he was able to reflect that.
Yeah.
And just in terms of a boat
Well, one of the things that I try to never fall the habit of becoming is realistic.
Right.
You know, like the kid, I don't want the kids to be realistic. Like realistic is what we're taught. That's what school teaches you. You know,
Right.
you sit down for 8 hours, you learn to do a job, you learn these skills, which helps you become a great employee. And that's fine for a lot of people that works, and a lot of people can still fulfill their dreams that way. But a lot of people have been convinced to be reasonable. Don't dream so big. When you're a kid, you want to be an astronaut. Everybody says, oh, yeah, that's awesome. You go be an astronaut. And then you get a little bit older, and they're like, okay, but really?
Are you really going to be an astronaut?
Lawyer might be as good as it gets for you, and that's stretching it, you know?
Big time, big time.
Yeah, when you hang out with people who are unreasonable and relentless in the pursuit of creating what I like to call their epic life, you know, and defining what that is and chasing it, you realize like what's normal for 90%, 99% of the world is not normal for the people that are doing it. Like, you know, it's not normal to go buy a McLaren or a Lamborghini or a Ferrari and drive it. But once you have one and you're in the circle of other people that have it, it's normal. I get the call every day from somebody. Hey, I see this Ferrari's going up for sale. It seems like a pretty good deal. Do you want to grab it? I'm thinking of grabbing it. Maybe you could grab it. And it's just like, those are normal everyday conversations now.
Right.
But before I broke that ceiling and bought, 10 exotic cars in 1 year, it was a really like, oh yeah, that's my goal someday. It was a someday type of thing. And when I finally put my foot down and said, no, we're going to make this happen, I got rejected a couple dozen times until I made it happen. Now that I made it happen, everybody wants to finance me for whatever I want, but it was hard to break that barrier. But I had to surround myself with people who had done it, who were living that way, and it was normal to them.
Exactly. You've got a very good circle. And speaking of family and speaking about how school kind of rearranges the way that we think, what are your thoughts about homeschooling versus traditional schooling? Which do you prefer, one or the other? And
I mean, I think that I respect both.
Okay.
My mom always wanted the kids to go to private school.
Right.
And my thing was, I want my kids prepared for the real world.
Okay.
And I felt like public school was a little more the real world, But I have been very tempted to homeschool the kids as well. During COVID, I was doing the homeschooling, and most people were, right?
But no, I mean, how did you find the time to do this? Is just so crazy.
Well, that's the big misconception. You own Epic Fighting, you own Epic Promo Girls, you own Epic Exotics, you do real estate to help people buy and sell houses, and you flip houses, and you have your own properties that you have to look after. How do you have the time? And the reality is if you have a good team, then you shouldn't have to spend too much time doing too much of anything.
Right.
And so I have more time than the average person, I would say.
Okay.
Epic Fighting consumes my time quite a bit the week before, and I'm trying to, and that's gotten better.
Right.
Even used to be the week of, I had no social life. Now, like this year, the week of, I had the whole Valentine's Day planned.
Nice.
And then a few of the girls stuck around and hung out for a few more days, and like we had fun. And in the back of my head, I'm like, is everything actually getting done by my team? And the last few, year or two has kind of been like that. Like I kind of show up the day of or the day before. But it used to be like the week of. But that's still for every 3 months. That's not too bad to be like super busy the week of the show versus when I first started. I mean, it consumed me.
I could imagine.
When you talk about balance, my family gets a lot of me. They got less when I was building Epic Fighting.
Right.
And my fitness, that was the one time in my life where I didn't even work out for 6 months. Now, I don't recommend that, but I didn't work out for 6 months. I got skinny fat.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Where your body fat goes up, but you don't have no muscle, and then you just look skinny fat.
Right.
And so, but during that time, I was building Epic Fighting. I was doing everything. I was doing the matchmaking at the beginning, which is the hardest job. Thank God I have Harvey to do that now. I was the CEO, the COO, the CFO. I was the model manager. I was the social media manager. I was doing it all.
So, quick question: how did you not lose all your hair in this process? Because that sounds
that was stressful. So it's a funny thing. I'm about a dozen or two shows in. We used to do them like really frequent every 6 weeks.
Right.
And one time, I'm living with baby's mama, and she said, "Are you sick again?" And I was like, "What?" She's like, I just heard like you had a little congestion, and I heard you sneeze earlier. Are you getting sick?" I was like, "I don't know. I don't think." She's like, "Oh yeah, it's a week before the show. You're definitely getting sick." And I said, "What?" She's like, "You didn't notice? Like clockwork, a week before every single event, you get sick." And I realized that was the point where I was overstressing. I was not getting enough sleep, had too much on my plate. I wasn't eating right. I'm not doing my workouts. I'm not getting any sun because I'm just inside working the whole time.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, this isn't good. I'm not sacrificing my health to build this just because it's cool.
Right.
And that's when I really took because I used to write about delegating and I used to talk about it like I'm way better than I was and I'm getting better. And then it became something where it's like, you either get good or you die. You know what I mean?
Damn right.
And so I got really good and I started letting go of the reins and trusting other people.
I do admit that I am like that, where I think I have to do it. No one understands my creative vision. Nobody can edit this the way that I want it to be edited. And the thing is you have to transition from being the person that is the master to somebody. If you're really a master, that means that you're good enough to teach somebody else. Yeah. That's what it comes down to, no matter what the deal is. So I want to we're going to go to right here in the middle camera. Take us back to here. What is this about exactly? What we're doing is we're looking at a picture of this guy with no shirt on, really, really short hair, short brown hair, probably taken on like an iPhone 2. And it says Bally Total Fitness Trainer of the Decade, holding the record for highest sales and most repeat clients until they went out of biz. I was about 23.
Yeah, that was about 20 years ago.
And you were 4.2% body fat, which is like top level athlete, basketball player levels. Mm-hmm. And you weighed about $160, but you benched 350.
Yeah, 350, and shortly after that, I did 365, which was kind of my reigning max. Which
your joints must have been killing you.
No, I mean I'm in my 20s there.
Right.
I never really had too much joint pain with all the crazy stuff that I do. I've been lucky with that, and I think I can read my body well.
Okay.
I did zero cardio because my only goal was to gain weight. So back then, this was before I was vegan, but I used to just eat the highest calorically dense. Now before that, I stayed really, really lean, and right around that time I would still eat lean. But I remember shortly after that, or right around that time, I went from skim milk to whole milk. I went from no cheese to extra cheese. It was just like because they did this test to see how many calories you burned, and then I noticed that the more I ate, the more calories I burned. So it was kind of like, I can't gain weight because my metabolism will just go up if I eat more. Mm-hmm. So the amount that I needed to eat was like over 5,000 calories to see significant
good God.
gains. And so I was force feeding myself. My girlfriend at the time, Sarah, was helping me.
Right.
She had some brothers who played football, and she would bulk them up every year for football. And she was like, "I'm going to bulk you up. Like, this is going to be intense." I was like, "What, intense to eat?"
Yeah.
And it was way hard. I used to lose weight for wrestling and for fighting and stuff like that. And gaining weight is way harder. You you force feed yourself till you can't eat anymore. And then 3 hours later, you're still full. The sight of food is disgusting, repulsive. Eat again.
Exactly.
3 hours later, eat again. Right before you go to bed, eat again. Right when you wake up, eat again. And it was like, but I got big. Like I went from that 160 to within shortly over a year, or maybe it was within 2 years, but I hit 210 and 10% body fat. And a lot of it was water weight, you know what I mean? Body fat went up significantly, but I was big.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I got you. Big. So you've always been into fitness.
Always been into fitness. My word when I was a kid was physically fit.
Right.
And I would talk crap to people who wouldn't go jump rope at the playground and stuff like that. I was a little annoying. Probably similar to how my son is today. But I used to tease my cousin, "You're not physically fit."
So speaking as a child, why is the Bronx important to you?
The Bronx, I lived for half a year, and that was where I last saw my mom for 3 years. So basically, I was born in West Virginia, moved to San Diego when I was 3 months old.
Right.
Because my dad came to San Diego when he found out my mom was pregnant. And he kind of bounced. I'm pursuing my dreams. You're not going to stop me. That's what I can imagine was his mindset. Mom kind of was like, "Well, this is your baby, so surprise, we're here." And 3 months old, shows up.
Okay.
And so then I was here for for about 5 years. Now, mom was getting into trouble, doing things she shouldn't have been doing. And,
Okay.
I remember she got arrested at one point, and I ended up in an orphanage for a while, and then I ended up in I kind of got adopted by like a foster family, and that was kind of weird. I remember like feeling really out of place, and then mom comes to get me.
Right.
And you could tell looking back as a parent, she's feeling real guilty. You want a toy? You want she's feeling bad. You want to go eat lobster? And so then we end up moving from California. She's probably getting in too much trouble to the Bronx. And the Bronx was where,
This is the old Bronx.
This is the old Bronx. It's the most. So if you guys don't know about Bronx in 1985, that's when we went there. Bronx in 85 is arguably the most dangerous place in United States history, with higher shooting ratings and murder ratings than the Wild Wild West days. So back in the Wild Wild West, where it was normal to be like, all right, you stand there, we'll take 20 paces, turn around and shoot each other and see who kills each other first. And that was kind of normal.
Right.
The Bronx was worse than that in 85.
Wow. Okay, wait, Lance, you're our official New York City historian. Is what he's saying green or red?
Very true.
Shout out to Lance. Shout out to Lance.
And so my mom was like, but there's a big, my mom was a drug dealer. So she was like, there's a big opportunity in the drug game for her to make big money. And then she'll have stacks of cash, and then we'll go back to West Virginia.
Right.
And the money will go farther.
Yeah, this is when crack first started hitting the streets. We're talking mid to late 80s, right?
Yeah, so my mom was into everything. She sold crack. She sold heroin. She was a heroin addict for a lot of her life. She sold all the pills. She sold the acid, back in the when the acid was big. I guess it never died down, but and so I'm very grateful for all of her teaching, because she was very open with me about everything. My mom, that's a whole nother thing that we could talk about. But my mom never told me not to do drugs.
Okay.
Not once in her life. And as a result of that, I've never done drugs. Like, I've never been drunk. I've never been high. I've never smoked anything. I've, never had the curiosity to do it.
You know what's interesting? You are the third person that I've met who has that particular biostat. Mm-hmm. And all three of you guys are, we'll say, affluent.
Okay.
You guys are all like high achievers.
Well,
do you think there's is there like a parallel to that? Like, do you think there's a correlation to?
Well, I know tons of highly successful people who still, get high on the regular, and I don't demonize marijuana by any means.
Right.
And they still drink and stuff like that. And, but I think that, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. Am I successful because I didn't drink or do drugs, or did I just have such a crazy disciplined renegade extremist mindset to be successful that it was easy for me to apply that towards like not drinking. Also, typically to be successful, you have to be okay with not being like everyone else and not falling into norms and doing what everyone else does. And if you're capable of that, it's easier for you not to drink, because let's be honest, the first time that you drink or do drugs, it's at high school, for some of us junior high, and you're trying to be cool, you're trying to fit in. Then it becomes something that you're trying to escape or whatever. But at first you're just like, well, I want to have fun, and I don't want, and I want to fit in, and I never really had that. I never had that urge to fit in. It was a really weird thing with me. Like, if anything, if everybody was doing it, I wanted to do the opposite.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I didn't want to be like other people.
You were a rebel's rebel.
I prided myself in being unique. I've been vegan for 12 years, and like I almost like it's such a fad now that I want to go eat meat just because everybody wants to be vegan. Now my reason for going vegan wasn't just because it was rare, but that just to tune into how my brain works. But to get back to the Bronx, we end up going to the Bronx. We're there for 6 months, and shit starts getting hot. My mom's making these moves, but people don't like it.
Oh, right? Okay, right.
People don't like it that she's coming in, and she's experienced and she knows what she's doing, but there's turfs down there. She's not affiliated with any of these gangs or anything.
Right.
And so
this is around the Decepticons, and a few other big gangs were down there in the city around this time.
Yeah. And so she puts me on a plane, and she says, I'll see you in 2 weeks. And she was going to do her last big move, and then she was going to fly out to see me. But she also knew, at that point I had seen her mugged right in front of me by this dude that pulled us into a abandoned apartment and held her there with a knife to her throat and tell me where the money is, give me the money. And she was spitting in his face and F you and this.
She
and
was
that.
a G.
Yeah, and I'm there and they're like, read that comic book, and I'm like looking at it like, okay, and and then she, he finally leaves pissed off and sit down. If you stand up, I'll cut your throat, and she stands up, and as soon as he walks out, she stands right up. I was like, oh, Mom, sit down, right. Like I heard the man, he sounded serious, sounded like he meant business. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, F this mother F, grabs my hand and starts running with me. And I remember I was running as fast as I could. I couldn't keep up. So she would just, when my feet wouldn't move fast enough, she would just drag me. And she goes to the nearest cop. She's like, go chase him that way. And the cop wouldn't go. I think he ended up getting some money off of her.
Okay.
And so then next thing you know, she's cussing out the cop. Yeah, it's because all of you guys are pussies and you guys are scared of the drug dealers run the shit and you guys are all pussies and you guys are scared of the cops here are scared. She used to always say that. The cops in the Bronx are scared to death.
They probably should be.
Yeah. And they were. Mm. And so she ended up putting me on a plane, go back to West Virginia, stay with one of my sisters. I'll come back for you. And during that time, she got shot. And when she got shot, went to the hospital, they found out she had AIDS. No one knew where my mom was for 3 years. 3 years later, because basically back then, if you had AIDS, 6 months was the longest you were going to live. Yeah. They put you at the top floor with everyone else who was dying, and then you were out.
That's right.
And so she lived for 3 years. She was the longest person from that time period who survived with AIDS. Finally got the call. I'm living with my aunt for 3 years and some cousins, 5 to 8. So around 8 years old, they're like, we're going to take a trip. Mm-hmm. We take this trip to New York. It's like a 10-hour drive from West Virginia. And I see my mom hooked up to all these machines, and they're like, everybody has to wear this head to toe like suit and everything. And they're like, don't get close to her, don't touch her, and all this crazy stuff. And I'm like looking at my mom, and she's like, come give me a hug. And I'm like, they told me not to. They told me not to. And she's like, F them. They don't know what they're talking about. And she was right. Looking back, it was like, AIDS is not an airborne disease. You can't get AIDS from touching people, but it's just, she was so advanced for her time in so many things. So I remember giving her a hug, and I remember as I was driving back in the car, because I never cried for my mom. I never was like, that's how I've always adapted. I've always adapted like, okay, this is a situation, stay focused. What's the best move right now? Like hyper focus, senses get clear. And I remember driving back, and I was just like in the back seat of the car with 3 other kids and, people, we used to lap it and stuff. And I just kind of turned my head into the corner, and I was just like, damn, that was my mom. I may never see her again. And at 8 years old, I'm kind of cognitively mature enough to kind of realize this. Right. And then I remember I was like, that's all right. Just go to sleep. Just go to sleep.
Okay.
We don't need to be sad right now. Just go to sleep. So I put my face in the corner of the where the seat, the bottom to, and then this damn song came on, like, that's what friends are.
Oh, no.
In good times and bad times. That song.
Right on.
And the song was like, I can't do this song right now. And I remember I started crying, but I hid my face in there. To this day, I don't know if my aunt was like, oh, it's obvious he was crying, if anyone knew that I was crying back there. But I remember that was the first time that I'd really cried from sadness or thinking about it. And then a few months later, because you didn't leave the hospital in 88. You didn't just get out and leave a hospital when you had AIDS. You know what I mean? You were just there till you died, kind of thing. It was, but that was right the point where they were a few people were starting to kind of get out. So she basically escaped the hospital.
What?
She escaped it. She was connected to the drip thing. She literally, with her nightgown, walked the hell out, holding the shit, got a cab. She had called her mom. They came and got her. She was 70 pounds.
Wow.
And my grandma, her mom, kind of nursed her back to health, gave her food, got her weight up to where she could walk and stuff. And she came and got me.
That's why she lived so long, because she decided to live and not just accept her fate.
It was the only thing. It was I have a son out there, and I can't die yet. And then she came and got me, and I lived with her, and it was a wild ride living with, my friends called her Wild Man Mona. They were like, damn, Mona is a G, she's wild. And I remember I have a brother who was adopted. My dad has a few kids that were adopted or raised by other people that we just kept finding out, which is a whole nother story. And so he met my mom. He's like, man, I call Mona Monique because she's so smooth. She's got all the tricks. She's like, first of all, you need to go sign up for this. They're going to give you money for this. She knew how to like work the system. And we were always on welfare and food stamps, which was really embarrassing where I grew up. But yeah, like so that's basically the Bronx. I was there for 6 months, and she was there in the same hospital where Born on the 4th of July was filmed in, which in that hospital they show all the rats and the horrible ways that they would treat people. Yeah. The nurses would be like, "Are you cold?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, okay," and take your blanket. Like they were mean. I mean, New York has got that reputation, and they were mean in there. She had a lot of stories, but yeah.
So speaking of which, there's a story about she hit somebody with a brick.
Yeah. So my Uncle Harvey, we're
going to know your whole family by the end of this interview.
Yeah. I had this Uncle Harvey, and who else was with her? I wrote about it. It was Lee Berry, I believe.
Okay.
Or was it? Yeah. So anyway, she's with some basically like friends of family, some black guys.
Okay.
Mom's white. And these rednecks come to start havoc, and if it ain't white, it ain't right.
Well, now, this is in West
This is in West Virginia.
Okay.
And Harvey had just got back from war.
Oh, geez.
So Harvey's got PTSD. He's built like a tank.
Right.
And like he's just like, all right, these people are coming for me. This is the enemy, right?
Right.
And so there was this truck full of a whole bunch of rednecks ready to beat up, the black guys for having a white woman with them, and probably would have come up with any
because you're mixed.
So my dad's black and Filipino, and but my dad wasn't there. These are other black friends of my dad's and my
Gotcha.
mom.
Okay.
And so she put a half broken brick in her purse, starts swinging it, and the guys come ready to fight. And between basically, it was basically her and Harvey that fought all of them. I don't remember if it was like 5 or 6 of them because there was dudes in like the back of the truck or whatever. Right. But yeah, she was basically swinging the brick and hitting him, and Harvey was a beast and he knew how to fight, and they fought all of them and whooped all of their butts. And that's one of the really cool stories I have.
That is insane. So West Virginia must have left like a huge mark on you, just in terms of just like where how dynamic the landscape of America is, because you even had some people in school who thought that you were of one background. And they come to find out they would say all types of bullshit to you.
Yeah. I wrote about that, where I had partnered up with this really nice kid, and one of his facts is he didn't like black people, but he didn't say black people. What he said. And I'm like, this is the nicest kid in the school. It's the only kid that didn't know someone and I could be partners with in this class. And now I have to fight him because that was like kind of the rationale, like where I grew up is like, if you're racist, then we have to fight,
Right.
And then my mom was like, why do you got to fight him? Like, he said the N-word. It's like, what do you mean, Mom? Like, what? You know better than anyone. You've been fighting your whole life over this. And she was like, oh, son, no. Like, if you want to fight people because they're racist, you'll be fighting your whole life. And you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to change their mind. I said, what do I do? He said, just explain to him that you're black. And I did that day. I was all disappointed, and he was like, what's wrong? And I was like, well, my dad's black. He's like, and when a racist, what happens when a racist gets put on the spot? Well, some of them are cool. I mean, some of them are cool. I like Michael Jordan. I wear Jordans. Like,
Right. You one of the good ones. You one of the good ones.
He's backpedaling.
Right.
And so, and then she also explained to me, to go in further detail, like, that's not his thinking. That was programmed into him.
Right.
His parents are racist, and his parents aren't bad people. Turns out his dad was like this, fire chief captain. Great guy. I went and had dinner at their house later on. We became friends. His parents told it to him, and those parents told him, and those parents probably lived in an era where there was a lot of encounters and fights and stuff that you don't even understand.
Right.
And it's so rooted in their blood, and then they just pass it on to the kids without thinking about it. Even if they don't have a conversation that these are good people and these are bad people, it still happens just on their daily actions.
Right.
And so he said, just be nice to him. Show him what a good person you are.
Right.
And then you fast forward and he was like, can I talk to you? And I said, yeah. And I have a black cousin that goes there, Kira. And me and Kira were always like this.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I really respect you and I think highly of you. And I was wondering if you get mad at me if I ask Kira out.
No way. No way.
I said, you want to ask Kira, my black cousin? And he had this huge crush on her.
Okay.
And mom was right. Like, if I would have fought back and been like, got on my black friends and my black family, then like, let's fight and let's,
right.
you know, then it would just reinforce. Like, yeah, this reinforces my,
right.
You know, I always say you don't always believe what you see, but you always see what you believe.
Right.
So if you got this thing that was planted for whatever reason, or you came up with it that this group of people are bad, Republicans, this country, this race, or whatever it is, you're just going to see the facts that reinforce your point.
Right.
Any facts that are contrary to that, you're going to skip. That's why you see the Trump fans going so hard and the anti-Trump fans going so hard, because it's so easy to find a meme that coincides with what you believe.
That's
you know?
right.
That's why you see the if you don't get vaxxed, you're killing everyone, and if you get vaxxed, you're stupid and this and that. Like, you know, like both of them have their points and their beliefs, but it's like you're just going to pick what you want.
Right.
And so that's why I say pick love, pick that all people have good in them.
Right on.
And pick that your dreams are possible and you can manifest them. And then all of a sudden you start seeing, well, there was this one dude who was able to buy this car. There was this one dude that was able to buy this house and do this thing. And there is this 65-year-old that just started doing handstands, and by 66, he was crushing them, you know? So like you start seeing all this evidence where most people will be like, I'm too old for that.
So if you didn't get something from that statement right there, I don't know what to tell you. Like you got to take something, get some happiness pills in you, because that was a lot of sunshine right there, brother. Thank you for that alone. It. And speaking of sunshine and speaking of happiness and speaking of love, I think you have 8 rules of happiness.
The 8 rules of happiness. Okay. Yeah, you pulled up a post. This is what's crazy. Whenever you're in a great state, that's the perfect time to write, to take action, to do things. And so sometimes I'll wake up and I'll just be like motivated, or I'll put myself in a motivational state, and stuff will come to me. And then I'll look back and be like, man, I made a post about that.
Right.
I was half asleep, but I was in a great state.
But before you go into that, here's the thing, though. A lot of people speculate, and I personally believe that state where you're just above asleep, but just below being fully active, that's when you're able to communicate with higher self, spirit.
Absolutely.
And that's why we get all these amazing ideas. And you notice a lot of it is usually very, very positive, which can say something. But tell me more, please.
Yeah, so you're talking about the 8 tips to happiness. Well, there's a lot of science, so it's not like I made all this up. A lot of it is just it's science behind it. No matter how bad of a mood you're in, if you smile, it's been proven time and time again. Your endorphins change, you become happier.
Right.
The longer you hold that smile, no matter how fake it is, no matter how dumb it feels, you can't help but to get happier. And so they've done that study a million times. You could try it. You can look in the mirror and smile. They've done with chronically depressed people, to where chronic means like you're depressed almost all the time.
Right.
Almost every chronic depressed person has at least thought about suicide.
Right.
These are the worst of the worst when it comes to depressed people. Then they compared different types of medication, different things, to smiling in a mirror for 30 minutes. And so they just smile in a mirror looking at themselves.
Right.
For whatever period of time that they do the study. I think it was like 15, 30 minutes, something like that. And every single one ends up not depressed.
Wow.
It's like a 99.9% success rate, better than all the drugs, everything else.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that is so uplifting.
So number 1 was smile. The other one that I had on there was progress. If you're not growing, you're dying. And so many people have trouble. They have trouble just kind of like believing it. Like if I go out there and just try to work on something, it's not going to make me happy. And yeah, that's not the only thing, and it's not the cure-all, but you can't really feel fulfilled unless you're accomplishing something. It doesn't have to be money, but money's a great one.
Right on.
It doesn't have to be fitness, but fitness is a great one. And that leads me to the third one, which is you need to be physically fit.
Be active.
You need to be active. Get some sunshine, get some fresh air, and move. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if if you do burpees for 10 minutes a day. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you want to go and play golf and you're just walking from hole to hole. I don't care if you want to do CrossFit, jiu-jitsu, calisthenics, whatever it is, but your body was made to move.
You're damn right.
Like, there's not really many times in human history where humans sat around for long periods of time.
True. We
had to hunt, or we had to gather, or community events were active, or we were, fighting, or whatever.
Right. We had to do something.
We had to do something. And then also on there is
Lance. Let me see the phone real quick. My man Lance has got it here because I want to record this the best that I can. In his phone too. Yeah. So we had some more there. When we can fix this up.
What do you want me to look?
The rest of them, yeah.
Oh, the rest of them? Oh, okay. I think I had it off of memory, but...
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if you still had them off of memory. I was like, let me just make sure that it's good.
Yeah,
then.
do something good for others.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you do something that is selfless, you will feel a lot better about yourself. And people, a lot of people have never really explored that to a very high extent. But, you'd be surprised how many people haven't done much charity work. So, yeah, smile, accomplish things, which is progress, be active, which we talked about, eat to nourish, which basically means like so many people are trying to get their macros. All right, I'm trying to get this much protein in my chicken, and I'm trying to get this much carbs in my rice, and I'm trying to get X amount of fat. And
I'm trying to get as much hot sauce as possible on my eggs and as much sugar in my grits as I can.
Yeah, but the way we used to live is we would grow our own stuff. We would know the farmers that we were trading with and how they grew it. The stuff was local.
Right.
And so everyone's talking about the macros, but not the micros. What people are, there's no one deficient in protein.
No.
It's never happened in American history. Like, no one in America is protein deficient, but everyone's like, got to get my protein, got to get my macros. But there's a lot of people vitamin D deficient, calcium deficient, magnesium deficient, and so zinc deficient.
You need your zinc, guys. Get your zinc.
Make a difference. So, if you have to get a multivitamin, good, but also eat it in the food. Like, make your food colorful.
Yes.
Put it together in your fruits and your vegetables and stuff like that.
And with that as well, like remember we're going through a period of eggflation. It's called eggflation because people were like trying to sell eggs like it was crack in the 80s.
Yeah.
And people were going to Mexico and smuggling chickens over the border.
I'm a buyer. So for those of you who don't know, I have this health and wellness center that's being created. I actually just noticed some texts came through from some people that are staying there right now. So the first people are staying there, and it's been crazy. It's been a little bit of a nightmare for them because they're like the first one there. So anything that can go wrong has, but they've been really cool about it. But I was explaining to them, and I've explained to other people that, the bigger house on the top that's on that property, and there's already a chicken coop, and there's going to be a place for llamas where we're going to use their fur or wool or whatever that's called, and alpacas to make warm socks and warm sweaters and all that stuff.
I'm staying there now. And did we go through all 8? Because I really want to touch on that.
I'll go through all 8.
All right.
But when you mention chickens, I'm going to have chickens on that property, and I'm in escrow on 10 acres in Joshua Tree where we're going to put a bunch of chickens as well.
Give up. Man, I'm moving out here.
And so the other one is eat to nourish, and then 5, avoid the news and the media. And when I say avoid the news and the media, that's basically all you have to do for most people. But what that is if you got the people, and this ties into the next one, that are always gossiping, that's kind of like the news. They always got something bad to say about something. Well, that's what the news is. It always has something bad to say about it. I remember when people were all scared to death to go outside in this at the beginning of this whole, pandemic or plandemic, depending on who you ask.
Yes.
I was like, why would you guys be so scared of this? It's not that serious. And then I stayed at a hotel and I watched the commercials.
Right.
Because I don't even have TV. I don't even have them. That's not even an option for me. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on politically and internationally and none of that. And I was like, oh my gosh. I've been here for one night watching TV for an hour, and the music they put, the stuff, like they really get to, are you a good person? Then you care, and this and that, and oh, by the way, this will kill you. And it's like they are brainwashing us, and they always have. It's not new with this.
Right.
If you go back to Japan, when Japan was fighting the USA back in the 40s, Hiroshima and the bombings
42,
of Pearl
45,
Harbor and all that, like what we didn't get was if you watched a cartoon there, this is how early they start brainwashing us. If you watched a cartoon there and they depicted an American, it always had horns and a tail and was red.
Oh,
so if you ever had an American on any type of cartoon or anything like that, it was just like, that's the devil. So you talk about racism being implanted in you. Like, I've seen, since I was 3 watching cartoons, I knew Americans were bad people. And what's funny is people don't remember this, but if you're, late 30s, 40s, 50s, like, Americans were scared to death of Russians.
Damn right.
We were scared. The media had us scared to death.
Oh,
Communists were like, oh, I don't even really fully understand what a communist is, but I'm scared to death of it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Big time.
Then,
it's always us versus Russia.
Yeah, I remember I went to school. I'm like, communist means that we just want everyone to have an equal amount. I'm like, okay, but what's the rest? Like, why are we scared of it?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm confused. We're scared of that. And so yeah, we get brainwashed easily. So get off of the news. Keep positive company. The people around you affect your income and your health, mentally and physically, as well as your happiness.
Big time.
So you want to be around people who buy McLarens, that's going to help you get closer to the McLaren. You want to be around people that are millionaires, your chances, if you hang out with 6 millionaires, you're going to be the 7th.
Damn right.
And so, but if you hang around with 7 broke people for too long, you're gonna be the 8th.
And make sure you hang around happy millionaires, because nothing's worse than being around a miserable millionaire.
And I want to talk about that. And then number 8 is remind yourself that happiness is an inside job. Your happiness is your responsibility alone, and it shouldn't be dependent on outside circumstances or other people. And so
preach on it.
So we've met a bunch, we've been to Secret Knock. I've had my own event, the Epic Mastermind Experience. I've been to, the Tony Robbins events, the Money in You events, and I meet all of these cool people. And what I always like to ask is, because they're famous for something.
Right.
You talk to my boy, Brian Sidorsky. He's approaching $1 billion and he's made it through real estate. And then you talk to, the founder of UGG Boots, my friend Brian Smith, who's the co-founder of my event, Epic Mastermind Experience. And he's famous for building up UGGs. But what I always ask these people is, how's the other parts of your life going? What do you feel like you could improve in and all that stuff? Because I really want to gravitate and learn from and be mentored in the stuff that they're strong at.
Right.
But I also understand that for most of these people, I'm killing it in something that they're not.
Right.
And so I don't want to pick up the bad habits either.
Right.
And so the people that I really just look at it, then I want to be like, or I want to, embody their lifestyle. It's not always the richest, or it's not always the fittest, or, it's not, it's the person who is killing it and living what I consider to be a super epic lifestyle.
Right.
For some people, having tons of money in the bank and be able to write checks and go to these fancy restaurants. But if you've seen me and you followed me and all that stuff, I want to be jumping out of shit and off of shit and rolling on shit and skating on shit.
Yeah, and getting caught in dust storms out in Burning Man.
Yeah, getting in a dust storm in Burning Man. That's my epic life, and a lot of it has to do with being, slightly or sometimes more than slightly outside of my comfort zone and growing.
Right. I mean, and that reminds me of something that Les Brown has stuck with me for the rest of my life. And it's just, you look into the mirror every single day, and I refuse to live an unfilled life. An unfulfilled life like that scares the death of me. Like, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to see you out here in California.
Right.
But I was like, I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to do everything that's possible to make this happen. Now, we have talked about epic as well, and living an epic life. And you have so many different brands underneath your umbrella. Things that have allowed you the degree of freedom that you now enjoy.
Absolutely.
Why did you create, what's the backstory behind the Epic brand? And can you touch on what each sub-brand is and why they all kind of work succinctly, why they all work with one another?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool story. So I was training people in my garage. So this whole give back thing, I learned it earlier from a lot of mentors, and they were like, do something, whether it be for one person or 1,000 people, do something where you give back and you don't expect anything in return. So my thing was, I got workout at my house, 6 o'clock, Monday through Thursday. Anyone could show up. I'm training everybody for free.
Wow. And how old are you roughly around this time?
I was 30.
Okay.
And so, from 29, 30, anywhere from 5 people to 25 people might show up any given day, right?
Okay.
And they say you can never outgive the universe. You can never outgive God. So I'm giving and giving and giving. But what ended up happening, I ended up getting in really good shape because I'm doing these like, cross training type of workouts. And it was forcing me to leave. So, I was a workaholic. I was like, I got to work harder for my dreams, not knowing the power as well as I do now of manifesting it. It's not work harder. It's become more in alignment with who you are, like become that person. And so I would work till 9 o'clock at night. So now I got to be home by 6 because there's people there. Wait, where's Jason? He's supposed to put us through this workout. Mm-hmm. So I'm training people at my house. We're doing this workout. And this one dude comes and he says, hey, they're like, you're going to meet this guy. He trains MMA. He's a fighter. He's going to be a Navy SEAL. And he wants to do a fight promotion. You're going to want to meet him.
Okay.
Back then I trained. My daughter trained. We would do tournaments and stuff like that. So we roll, and I tap him out a bunch of times, and he was just like, oh, wow, you're really good at this. And I was like, thanks, man. He's like, I want you to help me with my MMA promotion. I'm doing one in Albuquerque, New Mexico. When I do my one in San Diego, let's partner up because you know all the gyms you go to. My daughter was like a phenom, so we would go to like all the gyms, and she would train at all of them for free, which meant I got to train at all of them for free.
Nice.
And then
all right.
And it's like, you know how to negotiate because you're in real estate. So you could negotiate the venue and you could have relationships with all the gyms. And then I'll do all the back end stuff. I was like, that's a ridiculous idea.
Oh, no, don't do it.
I said, that's a ridiculous idea. Yeah, I'm doing real estate. I got my family. I don't got time for that. Oh, really? And I'm reading 4 Hour Work Week on repeat. I got it in my car, the audio book. I got the book in my room. I go to sleep every night reading it. And I'm trying to figure out what muse, as Tim Ferriss, the author of 4 Hour Work Week, says, am I going to create? He says, follow your free time. Everybody says follow your passion, but most people don't know what their passion is. So if you don't know what your passion is, follow your free time. I'm like, all right, well, I train MMA. The only sport I've ever been interested in watching is like combat sports. I never watch football, never watch basketball. I train my daughter MMA. What could it be? Oh, MMA gear, MMA, gloves for girls because, they didn't have MMA gear for little girls,
Right.
It'll either be a female brand or a kid's brand or a kid's female's brand. So I'm still thinking over there, and then he comes again. You sure you don't want to do it? Man, nobody has time for that. But I go back at night. What's that business I could start? Man, what could it be? I'm brainstorming every night. Mm-hmm. The third time he asked, and I was like, wait a minute. Maybe that thing that I could start could be this. And so I'm an extremist, as you could probably tell. My wheels start turning. I start doing the research. I start calling up, like, because they had just legalized it.
Okay, that's a big move,
it was
too.
like, I'm like the 18th promoter's license on the camo.
That's big.
Something like that in the state of California. Mm-hmm. And most of the first 17 never did a show. Like, only a few of them ever even did one. None of them are doing it now. And so I was like, all right, let me look into it. Me looking into it means I did everything